An investigation into hostile work environments being conducted by the government because of the actions that the league itself and some of the players have had towards Caitlin Clark.
There is a senator, and I forget his name, who sent a letter to the WNBA requesting an answer as to why Caitlin Clark seems to be receiving unfair treatment from the referees.
The WNBA and Caitlin Clark's civil rights. If the league won't act to protect its superstar from a hostile environment, the government should do so.
Trump could get involved over the treatment of Caitlin Clark on the court.
This can go somewhere that the WNBA cannot afford for it to go.
Caitlin Clark's civil rights have been systematically violated by the WNBA, and now a federal investigation could literally end this league as we know it. A former White House staffer just dropped the most explosive bombshell of the entire sports world by calling for a congressional probe into how the WNBA has allowed their biggest star to be targeted, attacked, and discriminated against while officials deliberately turn a blind eye to the chaos happening right in front of them.
The Wall Street Journal wrote an article earlier this week kind of explaining Caitlin Clark's civil rights being broken. Now, I'm seeing this, right, as if the Wall Street Journal might have been tipped off, because now Indiana Senator Jim Brown and none other than ESPN sports anchor himself, Stephen A. Smith, has spoken about the WNBA should be under investigation.
Why this is taking on a civil rights angle, a hostile work environment angle, people forget about Candace Wiggins. She got bullied out of the league because she was straight. You have a racial component and you have a sexual preference component to all of this. And I think by and large, a lot of these women don't like the fact that she's white and straight. Well, you think that's not a bit of a civil rights issue? Of course it is.
We're not talking about some random basketball drama anymore. We're talking about potential federal violations, conspiracy theories involving gambling and game fixing, and government officials who are absolutely fed up with watching America's most popular female athlete get roughed up on national television while corrupt referees pretend nothing is happening. U.S. Congressman Jim Banks has already demanded answers from the WNBA about the targeting of Caitlin Clark, and now the pressure is mounting for a full-scale federal investigation that could expose gambling conspiracies, referee corruption, and systematic discrimination that goes all the way to the top of this failing organization.
So this came out last night. Representative, now Senator Jim Banks from Indiana, wrote a letter to the WNBA asking for answers about what the league is doing to protect Caitlin Clark after the Kennedy Carter cheap shot over a year later, and many more cheap shots with no action. Congress must act to protect CC.
If you think the WNBA is about to face the biggest scandal in professional sports history, and you want to see Caitlin Clark finally get the protection she deserves, smash that like button and drop "Expose the WNBA" in the comments, because this story is about to completely destroy everything the WNBA has tried to build over the past 27 years. The fact that we've reached the point where government officials are calling for civil rights investigations into a professional sports league tells you everything you need to know about how badly the WNBA has failed to protect their most valuable asset. This isn't just about missed foul calls or inconsistent officiating anymore. This is about a pattern of systematic targeting and discrimination that has been allowed to continue for an entire season, while league officials sit in their offices counting the money that Caitlin Clark is generating for them.
Are referees gambling? I want answers to that. Are the players gambling? I want answers to that. In a professional league where the players get paid less than all the other professional leagues, a professional league where the referees get paid less than all the other professional leagues, this is where the money is, folks. Nobody's been paying attention to the WNBA for the last 20 plus years. If they want to gamble underneath the table, this is the league to do it at. If they want to fix games underneath the table, hit some prop bets underneath the table, this is the league where they're going to do it at. WNBA needs to investigate that first and foremost.
There's millions of dollars at stake here and changing hands. You've got gambling, and the one thing we're not talking about, the millions upon millions of dollars that's been spent on Caitlin Clark by people that have traveled to try to see her play. By the WNBA, they have advertised her being in these games, this, that, and the other. They've moved arenas and all this. And then Caitlin Clark can't play. She's not able to get on the court because she's had the crap kicked out of her. That's a problem. It's a business problem.
She's box office. And you do have a lot of people that have come across, not everybody, but have come across as resenting it for that, because you have a lot of ladies in the WNBA who rightfully believe they did so much to help build this league that they resent the fact that people want to act like they don't matter nearly as much as she does. What they're forgetting, however, is that audience determines that. Where the audience interest lies, who they're interested in watching, who they're interested in seeing matters.
The former White House staffer who made this explosive call for federal intervention isn't some random conspiracy theorist looking for attention. This is someone who understands how government investigations work and believes there's enough evidence of civil rights violations to warrant congressional oversight of a professional sports league. Think about how insane that is for a moment. Professional sports leagues in America operate with tremendous autonomy and rarely face government intervention unless there are serious allegations of criminal behavior or systematic violations of federal law. The fact that we're even discussing a civil rights probe into the WNBA's treatment of Caitlin Clark shows just how far this situation has spiraled out of control.
A senator has already looked into it. You have members of the administration who have thought about it, from what I'm being told, and based on Trump's history with the NFL and him being an obvious sports fan, goes to events and stuff like that, he pays attention to this kind of stuff, and this is the kind of stuff that can feed that base. So I'm saying to the WNBA, I'm just warning them, watch it, because if he gets involved and that base gets involved, it could be a problem.
I mean, we never seen anything like this. We in all the sports, we have never seen anything like this. Now, if this is true, that it is a secret attack, a secret agenda to attack Caitlin Clark, to pretty much not call her fouls, if the UConn Blue thing is happening for real, this is bad. I mean, this is really, really bad for the league. This is bad for the game of basketball. And this is bad for us being American citizens, because we're supposed to be the land of the free and the home of the Braves. This ain't freedom, what Caitlin Clark is enduring right now. Now, we all proud to be Americans, right? But this ain't the American thing to do.
When government officials start talking about civil rights violations in professional sports, you know the league has completely lost control of the narrative and failed in their most basic responsibility to protect their players from systematic targeting and discrimination. The pattern of targeting that Caitlin Clark has faced throughout her WNBA career goes far beyond normal competitive basketball and enters territory that could legitimately be considered systematic harassment based on her race, popularity, and economic impact on the league. We've documented countless incidents where Clark has been eye-poked, body-checked, flagrant fouled, and physically targeted while referees either ignore the contact completely or give her technical fouls for having the audacity to react to getting roughed up.
Kennedy Carter, the one that started it all. Kennedy Carter slam into the side of Caitlin Clark while you have the ball over here being waited to be inbounds. She called her a and slammed into the side of her. How about Diamond DeShields? Watch this. Boom! That's not a basketball play. That's not a basketball play. Marina Mabry, earlier this year. Right there. There is no basketball being played.
Yeah, it looked like Caitlin got hit.
There is no basketball being played there. I'm sorry. That's bleeping assault. That's what that is. All right? By the way, Tina Charles puts a fist right there, right into Caitlin's back. They got lost in all this.
This isn't random incompetence from officials. This is a coordinated effort to allow opposing players to intimidate and injure the league's biggest star while making sure she gets penalized if she dares to defend herself or express frustration with the obvious targeting. The civil rights angle becomes even more compelling when you consider that Caitlin Clark's treatment by the WNBA appears to be directly related to her race, her popularity with certain fan demographics, and the economic success she's brought to a league that was struggling financially before her arrival. The systematic nature of the targeting suggests that there may be underlying motivations beyond simple competitive basketball, and that's exactly the kind of discrimination that federal civil rights laws are designed to address.
Her teammate, Sophie Cunningham, has said it's been excessive. Rebecca Lobo, our analyst here at ESPN, says every play against is a foul. Dickie V, Dick Vitale, the great Dick Vitale, accused players of being jealous. Gino Auriemma, national champion coach, the Hall of Famer, one of the all-time greats at UConn, not her coach. But this man said he has seen her receive treatment that Jordan didn't even receive.
Sophie Cunningham, by the way, made some comments about this too. And she talked about this right here, that when she was in Phoenix in the locker room, they talked about the treatment of Caitlin Clark and how they were going to, be tough on her. And now being on her team and seeing it, I'm like, what are people doing? Actually, it's just too much. It's too much. I'm over it.
Is it incompetence from the officials, or is it purposeful incompetence? Because there's cheddar on the line. Hey, you swallow that whistle, I got a G for you. Hey, you swallow that whistle, I got X for you. I know you only get paid X amount of dollars. I know you want to get paid more.
When a professional sports league allows systematic targeting of an individual based on their race or the demographics of their fan base, that crosses the line from sports competition into potential civil rights violations that warrant government investigation. Congressman Jim Banks has already shown that government officials are paying attention to this situation and are willing to use their oversight authority to demand answers from the WNBA about their treatment of Caitlin Clark. This issue has reached the highest levels of government, and federal intervention is becoming increasingly likely if the league doesn't take immediate action to address the systematic problems.
It ain't just sports that I'm doing a lot more than sports. I am not guessing on this. I didn't go on my show and just bring it up for no reason. I happen to know a few people who have said this is something that do not be surprised if President Trump speaks on eventually. And if that man decides that this is something that can feed his base, that can ingratiate himself with that kind of audience that is protective of a Caitlin Clark and what she stands for and what she represents, and they come to a conclusion that they believe she is being unfairly treated, that is going to be a problem for the WNBA.
People from behind the scenes sources have told me as a recent, now I wasn't going to say nothing, that Caitlin Clark agent could possibly allegedly be behind this happening. So all the people that saying her agent ain't doing nothing, I'm here to tell you from what I've been hearing, allegedly her agent is behind this happening.
We're watching a social experiment taking place right now on Caitlin Clark.
But the potential federal investigation goes far beyond just civil rights violations, because there are serious questions about whether gambling, game fixing, and referee corruption are playing a role in the systematic targeting of Caitlin Clark. The WNBA operates in a perfect environment for potential gambling corruption because the players make significantly less money than athletes in other professional leagues. The referees are part-time contractors who work multiple jobs to make ends meet, and the league has received virtually no oversight or scrutiny from government agencies or investigative journalists until Clark's arrival brought unprecedented attention to the sport. If federal investigators start digging into the financial records and communication patterns of WNBA players and referees, they might uncover evidence of gambling conspiracies that make the current targeting controversy look like a minor issue.
Is there actual documentation of players going back and forth talking about taking certain individuals out, targeting certain individuals on teams? That's not going to be hard to discover. Give me your text record. Give me your phone records. Give me access to your emails. They can find it out like that. And if they find something, somebody's in trouble.
The questions that need to be asked during any federal investigation are absolutely damning for the WNBA's reputation and could expose corruption that goes to the very core of the league's operations. Are referees gambling on games they're officiating and deliberately making calls that affect point spreads or prop bets involving specific players like Caitlin Clark? Are players conspiring behind the scenes to target specific individuals in exchange for money or other benefits from gambling organizations? Are league officials aware of systematic targeting and choosing to ignore it because it serves their financial interests or the interests of their business partners? These are the kinds of questions that federal investigators are trained to answer, and the WNBA's current leadership seems completely unprepared to face the level of scrutiny that comes with a congressional investigation. The gambling angle becomes especially concerning when you consider that the WNBA has partnerships with major sports betting companies and has actively promoted gambling on their games as a way to increase fan engagement and generate additional revenue. If federal investigators discover that referees or players have been manipulating games to affect betting outcomes, especially games involving Caitlin Clark, who generates the most betting interest, the entire league could face criminal charges and potentially lose their legal authority to operate as a professional sports organization. The fact that Clark consistently faces different officiating standards than other players could be evidence of systematic manipulation designed to affect betting lines and prop bets related to her performance and the performance of her old team. The text message and communication records that would be subpoenaed during a federal investigation could reveal smoking gun evidence of conspiracy between players, referees, and potentially even league officials to systematically target Caitlin Clark for reasons that go beyond basketball competition. If investigators find evidence of players coordinating their targeting efforts through text messages, emails, or social media communications, those players could face federal conspiracy charges that carry serious legal consequences and would effectively end their professional basketball careers. The same applies to referees who might be coordinating their officiating decisions to allow targeting or affect gambling outcomes related to Clark's performance and her team's success. The financial incentives for corruption in the WNBA are actually much stronger than in other professional sports leagues because the low salaries create desperate situations where players and referees might be willing to take risks wouldn't consider if they were making millions of dollars, like their counterparts in the NBA or NFL. WNBA players make a fraction of what male athletes earn, and many of them work additional jobs during the offseason just to pay their bills. WNBA referees are paid per game and work college games during the winter to supplement their income. These financial pressures create the perfect environment for gambling corruption and could explain why the targeting of Caitlin Clark has been so systematic and obvious without any meaningful intervention from league officials. The potential consequences of a federal investigation for the WNBA are absolutely catastrophic and could legitimately result in the end of the league as a viable professional sports organization. If investigators uncover evidence of systematic gambling corruption, civil rights violations, or conspiracy to target specific players, the league could lose its legal authority to operate, face massive financial penalties, and see key personnel, including commissioners, referees, and players, face federal criminal charges. Major sponsors and television partners would immediately distance themselves from the organization to avoid being associated with federal criminal investigations, and the NBA, which currently subsidizes the WNBA's operations, might be forced to cut financial ties to protect their own reputation. The timing of this potential investigation couldn't be worse for the WNBA because they're currently in the middle of negotiating new television contracts and expansion plans that depend on maintaining their reputation as a legitimate professional sports league. If federal investigators start subpoenaing records and interviewing players and officials about gambling, corruption, and systematic targeting, potential business partners will immediately withdraw from negotiations, and existing sponsors will start looking for ways to terminate their contracts without paying additional money to an organization under federal investigation. The economic impact of a federal probe could destroy the WNBA's financial foundation even before any criminal charges are filed or civil rights violations are proven. Stephen A. Smith and other major media personalities have already started calling for the WNBA to implement transparency measures like last 2-minute reports that would provide public accountability for referee decisions in crucial game situations. But these suggestions assume that the current problems are caused by incompetence rather than intentional corruption, and a federal investigation will be designed to determine whether the systematic targeting of Caitlin Clark is the result of gambling conspiracies, civil rights violations, or simple referee incompetence. If the investigation reveals intentional corruption, transparency measures won't be enough to save the league from criminal prosecution and the complete loss of public trust that comes with federal indictments. The civil rights aspect of this potential investigation is particularly damaging for the WNBA because it suggests that the league's treatment of Caitlin Clark may be motivated by racial bias or discrimination based on the demographics of her fan base. If federal investigators conclude that Clark has been systematically targeted because she's a white player who appeals to predominantly white audiences, the league could face massive civil rights lawsuits and federal penalties that go far beyond the current basketball controversies. The optics of a professional sports league systematically discriminating against their most popular and economically valuable player based on race would be absolutely devastating for the WNBA's reputation and could result in complete loss of corporate sponsorship and television partnerships. The fact that Caitlin Clark has missed more games due to injury in her second season than she missed in her entire college and rookie professional career combined suggests that the systematic targeting is having its intended effect of limiting her availability and impact on the league. If federal investigators can prove that this pattern of injuries is the direct result of systematic targeting that was allowed or encouraged by league officials, the WNBA could face serious charges for conspiracy and intentional harm to their most valuable employee. The medical records and injury reports related to Clark's various ailments throughout the season could provide concrete evidence of the physical impact of systematic targeting and discrimination. The cryptocurrency and green toy throwing incidents that have been happening at WNBA games add another layer of chaos to an already explosive situation because they show that outside groups are actively trying to disrupt league operations and create additional negative publicity for an organization that's already facing potential federal investigation. While these incidents appear to be unrelated to the civil rights and gambling concerns, they demonstrate that the WNBA has completely lost control of their public image and is attracting negative attention from multiple directions simultaneously. Federal investigators might view these disruptions as evidence that the league lacks the basic security and operational competence necessary to maintain a professional sports organization. The pressure on WNBA Commissioner Cathy Engelbert to address these issues before federal investigators get involved is enormous, but her previous responses to targeting concerns suggest that the league leadership is either unwilling or unable to implement the changes necessary to protect Caitlin Clark and restore public confidence in the integrity of WNBA games. Engelbert's dismissive comments about officiating complaints and her failure to take meaningful action against systematic targeting have created the exact conditions that lead to government intervention in professional sports organizations. If she doesn't take immediate and dramatic action to address civil rights concerns and potential gambling corruption, federal investigators will do it for her with subpoenas and criminal charges. The broader implications of a federal investigation into the WNBA extend far beyond just one professional sports league because it could set precedents for government oversight of how all professional sports organizations handle player safety, civil rights, and gambling integrity. If Congress determines that the WNBA has systematically violated Caitlin Clark's civil rights or allowed gambling corruption to influence game outcomes, other professional sports leagues might face increased scrutiny and federal oversight of their operations. The NBA, NFL, and MLB would be watching this investigation very carefully because the precedents established could affect their own autonomy and relationship with federal regulators. The international implications are equally significant because the WNBA markets itself as a leader in women's professional sports and gender equality, and a federal investigation into civil rights violations would completely undermine their global reputation and credibility. International sponsors, media partners, and women's rights organizations that have supported the WNBA based on their stated commitment to equality and fair treatment would likely withdraw their support if federal investigators conclude that the league has systematically discriminated against their most successful player. The damage to the broader women's professional sports movement could be enormous if the most prominent women's league in America is found guilty of civil rights violations. The evidence that would be gathered during a federal investigation into the WNBA's treatment of Caitlin Clark would likely include thousands of hours of game footage, text message records, financial transactions, betting data, and testimony from players, referees, and league officials about their knowledge of systematic targeting and potential corruption. The scope of such an investigation would be unprecedented in professional sports and could take years to complete while generating constant negative publicity for a league that depends on corporate sponsorship and positive media coverage. to remain financially viable. Even if the investigation ultimately clears the WNBA of criminal wrongdoing, the process itself could destroy the league's reputation and financial foundation. The irony of this entire situation is that Caitlin Clark has been the best thing that ever happened to the WNBA in terms of popularity, viewership, and revenue generation, but the league's systematic failure to protect her from targeting and discrimination could result in federal intervention that destroys everything she helped build. If the WNBA had simply implemented proper player safety measures and consistent officiating standards from the beginning of Clark's career, none of these civil rights and corruption concerns would have reached the level where government officials are calling for federal investigations. The league's own incompetence and possible corruption have created the conditions that could lead to their destruction through federal prosecution and loss of legal authority to operate. The ultimate question that a federal investigation would answer is whether the systematic targeting of Caitlin Clark represents simple incompetence and bias that can be corrected through policy changes, or intentional corruption and civil rights violations that require criminal prosecution and potentially the dissolution of the entire league organization. Based on the pattern of evidence that's already publicly available, including documented targeting, inconsistent officiating, suspicious injury patterns, and league officials' refusal to address obvious problems, federal investigators would likely find enough evidence to pursue serious charges against multiple individuals within the WNBA organization. The question isn't whether the league has problems that warrant investigation, but whether those problems rise to the level of federal crimes that could end professional women's basketball in America.